righty. We are ready to go. Here's a new season of the Truth Convo, guys, and this is going to be an awesome way to start it out. I've got my new friend, I'll call him Judd Saul. Didn't know this guy's name, honestly, until just a couple of months ago. And I started seeing him pop up on different news outlets from Fox News and all the popular podcasts. And he spends most of his time in all of his ministry effort in Nigeria. Ratio Christi International also has missionaries in Nigeria, and we're very, very aware all the time of what's going on over there. It was so refreshing to hear his insights to what's happening across the pond over there. So we're not gonna delay any longer. We're gonna bring Brother Saul in on this, and we're gonna talk about this today, about what's going on with the persecuted church in Nigeria. And it might surprise you to find out that it has very little to do with the environment. So here we are. So Brother Saul, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? You've got an amazing story about how you really got on fire for the Lord, I think in 2011 or a little before that, and then started your work in Nigeria in 2011. Could you, for those that have never heard of you before, let's catch them up to speed a little bit.
So I grew up in a Christian home, most of my life, came from a, relatively good Christian family, was, in and out of faith a little bit during those years. And a bunch of church drama had happened, went through a couple of church splits that we were in churches, the churches are splitting up. A lot of drama happened. And I was just like, Lord, I'm going into college. I'm just going to do my own thing. Just kind of do my own thing for a while. I'm tired of the stuff. And I went into film school, got into documentary filmmaking, secular music industry stuff, all kinds of crazy things in my past. And then that was about 8 years of that. And then 2009, I kind of started going to church, and I got slapped upside the head, where the Lord spoke to me and said, Judd, I put you on this earth to do my will, not to do this junk over here. If you go that route, but you're not going to be blessed. You can go the route that I want you to go on, and you will be blessed. And, I knew right then and there. So I got on my hands and knees, repented, came back to Christ, said, Lord, forgive me for what I've done. Take over, do with me what you will. And then shortly after, and I cut cold turkey out of all the music stuff, all the secular stuff, got completely out of it, sold my rights to everything. And then that led me into doing conservative Christian and conservative political documentary work later on. But my grandfather, who's a lay evangelist, he's still alive. He's 90 years old, and he still hands out gospel tracts at Walmart's. He was working with a mission that was doing things in Nigeria, and brought the missionary in, and I heard what was going on there. And I said, I think I can help these guys out. I can help this mission. And so I first went to Nigeria in 2011. And after my first trip to Nigeria, that changed my life forever. And the Lord put a burden on my heart for Nigeria, the Christians in Nigeria. And I kept on going back every year and serving. And then as I saw the attacks increase, I saw the persecution increase. That's where I felt led to start the mission Equipping the Persecuted in 2019.
So the mission is called Equipping the Persecuted. And as it happens too, my first mission trip was to Africa in 2019 as well. So we kind of have a little bit of overlap there. Went to Uganda though, not Nigeria. I was in Nigeria in 2024 and, this amazed me for the sake of a conversation starter, I guess. But, I did my master's thesis in Islamic apologetics. Like that was my subject in short. It was a much
Wow.
longer, more boring title, but that's what my master's in apologetics thesis was about. And I had finished it up the year prior, and I was really looking forward to teaching about Islam in Nigeria. And I was scheduled to speak at Abuja International University there, and we had a wonderful conference. But my missionary on the ground said, really, the the thing that our students are thinking about most is really not Islamic apologetics. I mean, they pretty much know that because they have to deal with this so much. And that was when I started learning about the genocide and all this other stuff. It's like, you're not going to teach a Nigerian anything about Islamic apologetics. But the burning question in their heart is, how do we answer LGBT and abortion questions? And I just was
Oh, yeah.
floored. I was like, what are you talking about? You have to be kidding me. And he's like, no, that really is the burning thing. And he was right. I mean, we had students coming up afterwards, crying, talking about, like, we finally have an answer for this. And had another girl repent of, like pornography abuse and just all kind. It was just really like a little mini revival at that thing. But that left me thinking, like, this is crazy to me. Like, why is it like this? And we found out that the European Union was talking about withholding foreign aid from them if they didn't allow for LGBT conversations to be had in the schools and gay marriage and all of this other stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm just going to get this out in the beginning. Where is our priorities when it comes to countries like Nigeria? Like, this is crazy because USAID does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
European Union, the United Nations. It's like human rights to them means gay people need to get married. Forget all these Christians being killed, 100,000 of them probably. You probably have a better number than that. Have you encountered things like this?
A little bit. A lot of the stuff I've run into, because most of the people we work with are outside of Abuja. They're outside of the big city areas. So I'd say in those communities, that stuff hasn't infiltrated.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me be clear about the question. Have you encountered just a lapse of vision when it comes to like foreign aid and things like that? Like, they almost ignore the obvious problem. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Sorry.
I'm getting to that answer.
Oh,
so
sorry.
We have seen yes, but I have seen a lot of this, especially a lot of feminism, a lot of pro-feminist rallies, encouraging feminism in Nigeria, which is a foreign concept to Nigerians.
Yeah.
But we saw that garbage take precedent over getting help to people that have been that have had everything destroyed, had their everything ripped away from them. They overlooked and didn't even pay attention to the killings and the mass genocide going on against Christians and removing Christians from their homes. 3.5 million refugees within their own country. USAID, European Union overlooked the whole thing, pretend it doesn't exist.
It's amazing, isn't it? It was a loaded question because I'd seen you talking about this, but you told a story. It was just jarring to me about the garbage bins in U.S. And can you tell us about the garbage bins? I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Well. So there's a whole bunch of IDP camps in a town near a town called Makurdi, which is in Benue State, Nigeria. Predominantly Catholic area, but they have been hit really, really hard. There's about 600,000 IDPs that are in Benue State. 600,000. And IDPs are people that have been driven from their homes that are living in camps. Mm-hmm. And we went into a particular camp that we have been doing a lot of work with in the North Bank. And we had gone in, we had built better shelters for them. We've delivered food. We've done regular medical interventions. And on my way back, I wanted to go see how our progress was and visit with the locals there. And I come out, I'm talking to the camp head, and I look over to my side and I see like 5 giant garbage cans. Okay. With USAID stickers slapped on the side of them. And you have to understand that this isn't a camp where there is literally feces and trash everywhere you look.
Yeah.
Okay. So they essentially put 5 garbage cans in a dump. And I asked the camp head, I was like, did USAID really bring you 5 garbage cans? They're like, yes. I said, did they bring anything else? They said no. I say, they didn't bring you any food. They didn't bring you any medicine. They didn't send any doctors. No, they brought us these garbage cans. I said, does anybody from USAID or a local contractor come and pick up these garbage cans and empty them? And they're like, no. And I said, so you're telling me that USAID came in, gave you 5 garbage cans, and that's it? And they're like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was USAID's gift and help to a camp of roughly about 5,000 people that are starving, that are dying of crazy diseases, and USAID gives them 5 garbage cans.
Made sure it was visible too. That it said USAID on the side of
giant garbage cans, big USAID stickers on them.
Sure,
that's it.
And then the food trucks that they do send, I've heard you say, miraculously break down sometimes, right in front of terror camps.
Right in front of terror camps, right in front of terror areas. They break down, and oh my gosh, by the next day everything's gone, but the truck's still there, and then they pick up the truck again, and then it moves. Much of the aid that went into Nigeria got a lot. They were going to Muslims. They were going to Muslim communities. They weren't going to Christians, and they were feeding the terrorists. And then other aid that comes in is siphoned off by government officials and corrupt people, and only a tiny fraction might actually get to the people. But there's documented cases where big aid trucks, big lorry full of food, breaks down right in front of a terrorist area. Happened a lot.
Lorry's British for semi-truck, by the way.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, it's well. So I mean, this is amazing to me. And then, and one of the things that I just can't understand about this, Judd, is you start hearing the narrative come out to say, you know, it's obvious there's a genocide. I mean, anybody that's ever been to that country knows this is going on. This is not like it's a big secret. You can't cover up. How many people have been killed so far in the last 10 years? You have an accurate number?
Yeah, over 50,000.
Over 50,000. I've heard his estimates as high as 100,000.
Well, that's 5 years. In the last 10 years, about 100,000. And it's gotten worse. Just last year, in 2025, the entire year, over 8,000 Christians are killed. Just last year.
And so explain this to me. I've done no research on this, which is dangerous, I admit, but I keep hearing in the background, it's one of those things. It's like, I don't have enough time to even look this up. That's so ridiculous. I keep hearing people say things like these are environmental issues causing a genocide. All right. I want you to give me the like charitable best case. Like, what is the best case people have to say that they can blame the environment on this, and tell me why that's just obviously wrong.
In their warped little brainwashed brains, they say the weather up north, which was already a desert area, has been a desert area for the last 1,000 years, is driving the Fulani south, driving the Muslim south because of the terrible hot weather. This place has been a desert for over 1,000 years already. This is where they've been inhabiting and where they've been living. But throughout history, the Fulani and from the Sahel region, these radical Islamists from the Sahel region have tried to take over Nigeria a couple of different times in the past in history. So what we're seeing right now is not new. It's not climate change. They have an objective and have a stated goal of taking over Nigeria and turning it into a caliphate. They tried this in the 1800s. They got beat back. It wasn't climate change then that did it. They're doing it all over again now, but now we have technology. They have, machine guns, rocket propelled grenades, all sorts of things. And they have managed to work their way through cultural jihad and pretty much dominate the Nigerian government, which is allowing the Nigerian government to turn a blind eye to the killings.
So explain this. People need to understand that this is not going on throughout the entire country of Nigeria. This is kind of relegated to the northeastern region. There are hot spots in other areas, but
it has worked its way to Abuja.
Really?
To Abuja and to the east and the west of Abuja. There's the cutoff line is Abuja.
Really?
Is where this is affecting. They have worked their way into the middle.
Well, see, that's a recent development, because back in 2024, when I was over there, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my research, I think, at least I told my mother, I said, Mom, you don't have a lot to worry about while I'm there. I'm going to be about 2 hours from the cutoff line. This stuff was like 2 hours north of Abuja, 2024. So you're saying in the last year and a half, it's made its way down now to Abuja. Yeah. And people need to understand, if you don't know your Nigerian geography, most people probably don't watching this.
Right.
Abuja is the capital of Nigeria. They call it the federal territory of Abuja.
Mm-hmm. And it's right dead center. It's dead center in the middle of the country.
Yeah. So obviously they're gaining ground, and Christians will be Christians. I mean, Christians aren't typically inclined to have to take up arms. That's just not the way most Christians worldwide are wired. But it does seem to be that way now with this terror group that is pushing down on these people. So, it's apparent to me. And when I was in Abuja, I actually met a couple of people that were working with Christians in the north. And some of the things they tell you are just, I mean, they've got no reason they had nothing to gain, by the way, for those who think that this doesn't have anything to do with religious persecution or anything. They had absolutely nothing to gain telling me what they told me. It's one of those things. I was speaking at a school. I was speaking at a large elementary school, like secondary school, sorry. And they knew I was in town, so they came by, and they were affiliated with college ministry people. And we just, you do what you do. We were making plans to meet together, and these guys were just friends of these people. And they said, let me introduce you to a couple of special people. And these were people that were working. Actually, one of them was working among the Fulani Muslims, trying to convert them, because he said, really, the only way to stop this war and the only hope we have cannot come from outside intervention, because nobody seems to pay it any attention. We have to have gospel ministers on the ground reaching the Muslims to convert them to Christianity, and that's the best bet we have right now. So that's what I'm called to do. And I honestly teared up a little bit when I left that conversation, because I'm like, this is possibly the last time I'll ever see this man alive. Like, I'll see him in heaven one day. Then you start hearing things like, oh, this has nothing to do with religion. It's like, it's got everything to do with religion.
Yes, it does.
It's like, so, and there's some people blowing up the chat already about this. Like, this is such a contentious issue for no reason whatsoever. I mean, I know Muslims here in Houston that don't agree with what the Muslims are doing in Nigeria. Let's be honest. Like, it's not it's just incomprehensible to me, Judd. And I appreciate the work that you're doing over there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about Boko Haram. What does Boko Haram mean in Arabic? This is fun.
It's essentially means like Western education is bad.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Like Western education is evil. That's essentially what Boko Haram is. And that, so we can go into that, but I want to, but geopolitically and what's going on in Nigeria, I want to have your audience understand what's happening there.
Sure.
Is we have 3 terror elements in Nigeria.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have Boko Haram, which is, we hate Western education.
Yep.
I just call that a Nigerian name because, like, sometimes they name things, it doesn't make sense, but that's what Boko Haram is. They hate Western education. They are dominated by the Kanuri tribe.
Okay.
You have the ISIS affiliated group, which doesn't like the Kanuri, which are from the Lakura tribe.
Mm.
So they're the ISIS of West Africa. Okay.
Okay.
And then in the middle, which is the larger of the terror groups, is the Fulani ethnic militia. And all three of these groups are vying for control of Nigeria and to turn it into their own version of a caliphate. But they all have one thing in common. They all hate Christians, and they want to eliminate Christianity and turn Nigeria into a Muslim nation.
Wow. So are these guys like opposed to each other too, or are they just working together, allies or enemies?
Sometimes they work together, and sometimes they kill each other. It's like a mob. Okay.
Okay.
You know, like a mob faction, you have different territorial bosses, and then they do their own activities and take over this and have their own stuff going on. And then occasionally they'll get together for business and do some things, and then they'll go back to fighting each other occasionally. That's essentially how it's operating.
Yeah. So are there, I'm assuming, especially with Boko Haram and ISIS, there is outside funding probably coming to these groups from somewhere. Do we know if there's, so who's funding this war? Because war isn't cheap.
No. Well, part of the funding is coming from the Middle East. We know that some of these Boko Haram guys and even key Fulani ethnic militia types have gone to Saudi Arabia. We know that they practice a very strict Saudi Wahhabist form of Islam, that the same line of ideology that bin Laden did. They all practice a similar version of that. And so we know money comes from the Middle East on this, but we also know that there are countries that are doing business in Nigeria that are profiting off the status quo of the chaos. So the Chinese are mining in areas that were once Christian dominated areas, and they're paying off the terrorists to leave them alone. And I'm sure there's money being shifted underneath the table for their operations. And the other thing that's fueling this is the kidnapping and extortion of Christians.
Yeah.
They are funding a lot of their operations through the kidnapping of Christians, where they're kidnapped. They have to sell all their land, everything they own, to the Muslims that give them the money for it. And then these people are put into IDP camps. And they keep rinsing and repeating and doing this, and they're funding their war effort through kidnapping and extortion.
Man, that's awful. And I've heard too that when they capture the women, even with hostage, you probably will not get most young women back. Most teenage girls you'll never see them again. Because
very rarely. Yeah. They get turned into baby making factories and get married off to terrorists. And it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned a word there, and I think people need to understand this, more, that Islam is not this one big entity. The more I've studied Islam, I've noticed that you have these brands of Islam, like Wahhabism, you mentioned, Salafism, and especially geographically. If you talk to a Turkish, Iraqi, Afghani, and a Qatari Muslim, if you talk to those four people, you're going to hear four different kinds of conversations. Throw the Emiratis in there, that's like a whole other group of people. So they're probably not as diverse as like Christian denominations and things like that theologically, but their way of seeing the world is so can be radically different. So what do you mean by Wahhabi and Salafi Muslims, and how is that significant to this narrative?
Well, the Wahhabi Islam it's a full radical Islam, which is take over the entire world by conversion by the sword, conversion by jihad, and it is a full submission to Islam and Sharia law. And they take it to a whole nother level where, kill anybody that doesn't convert, kill anybody that gets in our way, and they get rewarded for all the killing that they do for killing non-Muslims. And they even get rewarded for killing Muslims that don't agree with them. So, And it's like I said, the same ideology as Bin Laden. It is the radical of the radical. Um, they're deadly. They have the guns, they have the weapons, and they are the ones that are wielding the power.
Do we know who funds those people?
Oh yeah, like I said, that's self-funded. Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia, Turkey.
Saudis.
Money does come in through the Middle East and through Northern Africa into Nigeria to fund this.
I was wondering how much the Muslim Brotherhood may be behind Wahhabism.
Oh, I'm sure they have their hands in it.
And yeah, and then and then you have like how many Wahhabis would you think, this is, we don't get off too far off subject here, but how much do you think Wahhabism is influencing Muslims in America?
Oh, it's definitely here. It's definitely here. And there's a major, I think there's a hidden militant Islam that is ready to sprout at any time, but they are here doing jihad culturally, planting mosques, populating areas, just like they did in Nigeria. But then when they have the population and the political cover, that's when they start doing the killing. And that's what they started doing in Nigeria. They populated, got the political cover, did terror stuff, drove people out of the areas, take control of territory, get the politics, the governorship, and now they lay cover to do more killing and taking over more territory. It's so it goes cultural, political, then violent jihad every single time.
Yeah, and I've noticed that a lot of these African countries I've been in, I've been in several at this point, but like you'll notice anytime that the church is being attacked from the government, there tends to be a Muslim in office that is doing it. And it's like Rwanda last year, I believe it was, there's 10,000 churches shut down. Well, that idea came from a Muslim government official, And in Nigeria too, did I read somewhere that the defense director or something like that, I forget what they call them there, defense minister or something, I believe is he a Muslim or is he?
Yeah, the national security advisor Rabadu is a Fulani Muslim.
Yeah,
and he's been a terrorist apologist in the past. Like unapologetically, you can go look at social media of his from 5-6 years ago, and he's talking about how wonderful it is that Christians are being killed, and he's praising terror attacks across the world.
Well, now his narrative
that's the national security advisor for Nigeria.
And it seems like his narrative is changing now because he's getting some international pressure and he's trying to say this stuff isn't going on.
Of course. Yeah. But this is what he did. So the United States government sent missiles into northern Nigeria, but who did they attack? They attacked ISIS. They attacked the Lakura, which Boko Haram and the Fulani don't like anyway. So Rabadu's like, hey, U.S. government, I'm going to give you some terrorists, these awful bad guys, which they are bad, and they should be taken care of, but it's not the ones that are doing the majority of the killing of Christians.
Yeah, well, that's not at all surprising, to be honest. It's not at all surprising. Man, so tell us about your work now, Judd. We've talked about the situation. It seems pretty grim. And so you have decided to make it, seems to be your life's work, to go over here and help these people in Nigeria. Nigeria, in case guys don't realize this, I mean, it's pretty obvious to most people that keep up with such things, but it is the most heavily persecuted Christian country in the world. And that's especially, as Judd was just telling us, beginning in Abuja at the middle part of the country up into especially the northeastern region. And so tell us about what you have seen in the churches from the Christians and what is going on there. What's, give us the situation. We've kind of bounced around, but give us the situation and what can we do about it?
Well, here's the thing. Christians are under attack. Every day I get messages. I wake up to messages of so-and-so was attacked. This person was killed. There was an attack on this village. Every single day, Christians are being killed in Nigeria by, Fulani ethnic militia and radical Islamists. And the situation is that people in the middle belt don't know if they're going to be next. They don't know if they're going to go into church and they're going to get attacked. They don't know if they're going to, be next day, or is their village going to get attacked, or are they going to be killed while they're farming? That's the situation. And I mean killed. I'm not talking about people saying nasty things to them. I'm talking about actual death. And I deal with this every day. Our team is there we try to respond to attacks within 48 hours. Sometimes we're there quicker. We're within 24. But we are dealing with the tragedy as it happens on a daily basis and trying to render aid, food, medicine, anything we can do to give them a leg up. And then we're also trying to work to prevent these attacks. So what we're seeing on the ground is real persecution, real life happening every day, and the media does not cover it one bit.
Why do you think the media ignores this stuff?
Because it's politically incorrect to say Muslims are killing Christians. And if they highlight when Christian villages are attacked and when Christians die, that flies in the face of the official Nigerian government narrative that it's just farmer-herder clashes, it's just tribal conflicts, it's not a genocide. And it flies in the face of what the European Union says, what the UN says. And like I said, there's a lot of people making money off the status quo on this.
It seems like it's a very controlled narrative that's coming out of this. I mean,
Yes.
for us to be able to like make such a leap to say that, oh, this is caused by environment. It's like, come on, like who's controlling this narrative? I mean, is it the
Nigerian government? The Nigerian government is controlling the narrative. And I've said this before, but I'll explain this to people listening. The way news gets out of Nigeria is when the Nigerian government holds a press conference. When the Nigerian government holds a press conference, they have their journalists that they pay to show up and write down what the Nigerian government wants them to write down. And then it gets filtered through Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is the largest Islamic publication in the world. It's like it's the CNN for Muslims. But what happens is once the article hits Al Jazeera, according to the world, that's a reputable, respected news source. And that is what the rest of the world and media sees after it comes from Al Jazeera. Okay.
So Al Jazeera hands it off to Associated Press,
AP, right. And then that's what gets printed in all the newspapers across the world, but it's filtered through Al Jazeera first.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I have, for what it's worth, I have a morning routine where I don't watch a whole lot of news. If I did, I'd be in a state of outrage probably. But I listen to, like each morning while I'm making my coffee and things, I have these little 5-minute news briefings that I have programmed. I listen to in this order usually because I'm a routine person, I guess. But Al Jazeera, then BBC, then Fox News, then Reuters, then CNN if I have time. And it's 5-minute news briefings from each one. Just somebody, just like the old Tom Brokaw days where somebody got it behind the microphone, just told you the stories. And it's amazing to me how the narratives change every single morning. Like how each one of them will report. Al Jazeera will report that, so many people have been killed in Gaza. And then BBC reports military action in Gaza has freed X number of hostages. And then by the time it makes it to Fox News, there's no mention of Gaza whatsoever. And then you get back to Reuters and they're actually reporting on like a lot of, they for some reason really like talking about, climate change all the time and stuff like that. A lot of other, cause they're out of New Zealand, but like when you hear what's going on, what I never hear on there though, is the murder of 100,000 Christians over the last decade in Nigeria. You never hear them talk about it. And when you do, it's Al Jazeera talking about, President Trump, it's always some British lady. President Trump has needlessly bombed villages in Christmas Day in Nigeria as a wake up call to blah blah blah. And you're just like, it's this anti-American narrative that's just so frustrating. So
Yep. Yeah.
frustrating.
Well, just a case in point, I'll give you an example. If you there's a big massacre that took place in June. It's the Father's Day massacre. 280 Christians killed in one night. Half of them were burned alive.
I heard about that. So tragic.
The Al Jazeera article said 100 villagers killed by unknown gunmen. Okay, so when Al Jazeera writes an article, it never says Fulani ethnic militia. It never says Boko Haram. It's always bandits or unknown gunmen killing villagers. So they never say who got killed. They never say who did the killing. And they always underreport the numbers.
Yeah.
And so it led us to create a project called truthnigeria.com. Which is, I have journalists on the ground that do investigative journalism. They actually go to these attack sites. They interview people, they ask questions, and they get eyewitness testimony. So it's real journalism that we've been doing. And still to this day, we are not considered by anybody a credible news organization. When we're doing real journalism more than what anyone else is actually doing in the mainstream media, we actually have people on the ground asking the questions and we're reporting on what's going on. But we're not considered legitimate news because, we don't go with the narrative.
Yeah, you're Christians, you're outsiders. I could just hear it. I don't even know what you've heard. It's
yeah. No, I've heard it a million times. And and my question back to these people is okay, when was the last time you were in Nigeria? How many journalists did you send to these attack sites? Well, we did. Okay, so you got it like from fourth hand information, and then you put it in your paper.
Yeah.
They never have the balls to go down there themselves and actually ask questions and investigate.
Yeah. And it's, I've, had friends that have traveled up into Jos before, which is up above Abuja, and the amount of bodyguards that were sent with them and things, it's just like, you have a target on your back up there, man. I don't know. I could understand why they wouldn't want to send people down there, but you're right. You don't see a lot, and we see this in the United States too. Like you don't see news reporters at the scene so much anymore. You see cell phone videos and things like that. People just making up stuff basically. And, it's just, it's sad to say, like, the last real good journalistic effort I saw actually came out of CNN, believe it or not. I know that's a shocker, but where Anderson Cooper actually went to the site where the Muslims bulldozed the fence and killed all of those people in that music festival, 1,200 people. You hardly ever hear about that anymore. And he was going into the bomb shelters where they threw grenades inside the bomb shelter and killed people, that were trying to save their children and things. And, and he was actually, it was a fair and objective assessment of what actually happened that day. It brought tears to your eyes. I'm like, why don't people do this anymore? Why don't people get on the ground? And then I find you guys, and you're doing that. You're actually on the ground in Nigeria. And I've always learned, Judd, I've been blessed to travel to over 20 countries. The people on the ground know so much more than the professors in the classroom, the media, all these other speculative things. It's like, let's get away from the theoretical. Let's talk about what's actually going on on the ground. And so on the ground, you're saying this is getting worse and worse and worse.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse, but our efforts are saving lives. Like, that's the thing. There's bad stuff happening, but there is hope. We are gaining ground. The U.S. is now paying attention to what's going on in Nigeria. Lives are being saved. It's an uphill battle, but there is hope, and we can turn this around.
So you said you've been there since 2019. So that was Trump part 1. COVID happened. I'm sure that was a fun time for your ministry up there. Nigeria COVID just sounds like is probably
Well,
wild.
here's a crazy part is during COVID, missionaries were leaving Nigeria because of COVID. I was going to Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were aggressively putting our missionaries and our staff out there responding to attacks. Guess Boko Haram didn't care. Fulani didn't care about COVID. They're still killing Christians and attacking. They weren't scared of it. But we had a bunch of missionaries leaving the country scared of a virus that, well, we all know that really wasn't that big of a deal in the first place. I have strong opinions on that. But as Christians, you know what? We're not supposed to run away from things. We're supposed to run to the danger.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be there for people. We're not supposed to run away from things. And so while that was going on, we grew as a mission during COVID.
Mm-hmm. I always think about Jesus going into Samaria instead of walking around Samaria when he met the woman at the well in Sychar. That's so true. I preach that all the time, Judd. We are called to go into the culture, not around it, not subvert it. Let's quit talking. Let's quit talking around the issues and actually get into the issues, which is something that Ratio Christi and Equipping the Persecuted has in common. And and informally, I'm going to ask you now, like, we need to start thinking about some kind of partnership because we are doing the same kind of thing. Because Ratio Christi, you may have not heard of what we do, but we are missionaries on college campuses that are creating tomorrow's leaders, global leaders, to go out and change the culture. We are not ashamed of getting into the weeds with public policy. We have ADF on retainer. They've won over, I don't know how many, over 100 cases for us at this point. Free speech violation stuff in the United States. But it's like, why are we so afraid it's like, oh no, we can't talk about religion and politics. Like, why are we so afraid of that? I mean, this is what, I mean, William Wilberforce was a Christian pastor that abolished slavery through Parliament in England. Like, why are we so afraid to do that now? And you guys are doing it, man.
Well, we're not a pietistic mission. We believe in getting our hands dirty, which is getting involved in politics, which is getting involved in security, and also doing the humanitarian aid and preaching the gospel. That the problem is with a lot of Christians is they think it's an either or issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't be involved in security and still preach the gospel. Baloney.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be involved in politics and still preach the gospel. Baloney. My Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, is Lord of all of my life, including my politics, including what I do on a daily basis. Everything is a gospel issue.
Yep.
I don't put Jesus in a little box and say, oh, that's not a gospel issue. That's not a gospel issue. No, Jesus is Lord of all of my entire life. And if I love my neighbor enough, we're going to get involved in these other aspects of culture, including politics.
Correct. Yeah, I was the quintessential Bible verse, since we're going there, I think for this is, I mean, besides, of course, like John chapter 1 describing Jesus as the Logos, we can go into all of that. But we have Colossians chapter 1 verse 15, where it says, He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions, principalities and powers. Principalities and powers, that's government. That's also the demonic realm, angelical realm. All things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in him all things consist, and he is the head of the body of the church, who is the beginning, firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have preeminence. I think that's pretty clear that you can't compartmentalize your life. And then when you become a Christian, one of the most powerful verses in the whole New Testament to me, the mystery which has been hidden from ages and generations, but now has been revealed to his saints, to them God willed to make known one of the riches of his glory, this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. And when you start thinking about that, it's like you see that our God is the God of all things. Like, he is over all of creation. He is over your family, your home life, your internet life, your cell phone. Like, it's that personal, but also the White House, the Parliament in Nigeria, Parliament in England, the
Exactly.
the the Israeli government, the jihadis in Gaza. Like he's in, he's over all of that and wanting to bring his will into all of that. And it takes Christians who are willing to be brave enough to say, like, part of Christian discipleship is learning how to uncompartmentalize your life and allow Jesus to be Lord over
Jesus,
all things.
Lord of all. Yeah, and
Yes.
I got asked a question today. It's like, why are all these bad things happening in Nigeria? What do you say to people, that says God is allowing these things to happen?
Hmm.
Well, to be perfectly honest, um, what I say is, well, God is not orchestrating these things to happen. But I'll tell you what, if good Christian men had stood up 20, 30 years ago in Nigeria, and the church had taken their
Hmm.
politics seriously, and they had nipped this in the bud a long time ago, the situation wouldn't be here. And I can
Hmm.
say the same thing for the United States. Our country would not be in the shambles it was in. The education system would not be in the shambles it was in if Christians had stood up in the civic sphere, stood for Christ when it would have been a lot easier than what we're having to fight now.
Oh, yeah.
We let the devil take strongholds. We let the devil take it over. We have all the power in the world to put him back in its place, but we let the devil do it.
Yeah.
Because Christians didn't want to get involved in politics. Christians didn't want to get involved in these issues because they had some very bad teaching by some pietistic ministers that told them to stay out of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we haven't engaged. And that is how I view Nigeria, but that's how I view politics in the United States.
It's sad too, isn't it, Jed, that it's often done in the name of you don't want to hurt your ministry. You don't want to hurt your witness on
Oh, right,
secondary
right.
issues.
Oh,
It
right, right.
makes me so, it's like that has become such a red flag for me when somebody says that. I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. So
Well,
what part of
let's
your
put it this
life?
way. They're not serving the same God we are.
Yeah, it's like what part of your
They're not
life have you
serving the
not
same God.
surrendered? Hate to
Right.
be
They're not
hate
serving the same God.
at the
Yeah.
risk of sounding uncharitable. Yeah, that's exactly
Right.
what's going on.
Yep.
Oh, don't apologize. Don't apologize. No, I really appreciate this. This is why I wanted to have you on this program, because I'm like, as I've watched you be interviewed and saw your Fox News interviews and things, I'm like, this guy gets it. Like, here's somebody who gets it. Like, yeah, it's not about being politically correct or things like that. It's about the truth, and the truth sets
Right.
people free. And that's not only concerning biblical truth, but that's also concerning how you view what's going on in the world. And people
Right.
need to be talking about this. By the way, part of this program is anybody who's watching out there, if you would like to ask Brother Saul a question, here in a few minutes, that's how we always close out our program. We like to try to bring you guys into the dialogue. I understand if you wouldn't want to do that. We do have one question already, but you guys, if anyone that out there has got a question, we would love to field that. And thank you for all who are watching. There's quite a few people watching right now. So, so when you say that you're equipping the persecuted, uh, Judd, without bringing any other ministry names into it, there's plenty of ministries that work with persecuted churches and things. Like, what sets you guys apart? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with these Nigerians? You said you're doing security. Now, I had no idea you were doing that. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
what that looks like if you're able. And please don't say
No,
any,
sure, sure, sure. So,
and
so,
yeah, and
so
other
what,
things.
what separates us from other ministries that work with persecuted Christians is we actually want to stop the persecution because we feel that God gave us brains, ability, legs, arms, and resources to assist our persecuted brothers and sisters to stop evil thugs from going in and chopping their kids up with machetes and shooting pastors and kidnapping them. We think that with a little bit of willpower and some resources we can put a stop to this, and that is our mission. Our mission is to stop the persecution, render aid, be the hands and feet of Jesus, help those in need. We preach the gospel with everything we do. Like I said, it's not an either or situation. but we can intervene on behalf of our persecuted brothers and sisters. Okay, so what does that look like for us? We work with village security teams, install village alarm systems, give them radios, communications, locally sourced bulletproof vests, teach them how to defend themselves, how to put up a first line of defense. If they know there's an attack going to happen, what do? Do we all evacuate? Do you put up a first line of defense? It's up to you and the situation on how to do it, but we show you how to do these things. My church has church security. I'm sure your church might have church security too. A lot of churches in the U.S. have church security. Guess what? This was a foreign concept to Nigerians.
Yeah.
So the least we can do is teach them basic self-defense skills and how to handle these situations. And then on the other side of things, because of Truth Nigeria and the reporting we've done, we've become very trusted amongst local villages and community leaders all throughout the middle belt of Nigeria. So since 2023, we've issued over 125 terror alerts with 90% accuracy. So we were able to give advance warning of attacks, and we have saved thousands of lives just by intelligence and giving out terror alerts. What a novel idea. So unlike other missions that deal with persecuted Christians, we are doing the humanitarian side. We support 1,000 widows a month. I have orphanage. I have 2 K through 12 schools serving 500 kids. We do medical and food interventions in IDP camps on a monthly basis all over Nigeria. But I would like the killing to stop. I would like to stop seeing people getting forced into IDP camps. And so we work on that side. And also we advocate here in the U.S. and internationally to get governments involved to stop the killing. That's what separates us from the other groups.
That's awesome. And I do appreciate, I mean, I've worked with persecuted churches with other groups before, and I greatly appreciate the work they're doing. Like they're doing some great stuff. But yeah, like you said, I don't know of another group in the world that is saying we're equipping these people to secure themselves. I know of one other group doing that, but they can't be named. And it's pretty bunch of former airborne rangers got together and decided to do that. And but the operation there in Nigeria is absolutely crucial. I mean, to Christendom. People don't realize whenever I took over Ratio Christi International, they asked me to do it, and I was working with Danny, our current director, and I was the assistant director. I was looking at the map of Africa, and I was like, if Ratio Christi is going to influence Africa, there are 3 nations that are absolutely crucial: South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. And I knew that Nigeria was influential. I didn't realize how influential they are. They have basically the equivalent of an African Netflix there, from what I understand. Their media is very widespread. Their influence is everywhere, and it is the most heavily populated African nation on the continent, Right. And despite the tens of thousands of Christians being killed, they're still the most heavily populated Christian nation on the continent. And what people don't realize is you are on the front lines of not just changing Nigeria, but whatever change you make in Nigeria can have a ripple effect across the entire continent. I'm sure you already realize that, but that's just the way things work there, So I'm just so inspired by what you guys are doing at Equipping the Persecuted. And by the way, if you guys want to give to this organization, help this organization, Ratio Christi is not in competition with anybody. But if you want to, I would consider this a very worthy cause to get behind. If anybody's watching this broadcast and say, hey, I think this is something I want to get behind. It's something, me personally, would like to get behind here in just the near future. So it's just truly amazing. Thank you, for all that you guys are doing. What are some good closing thoughts here, Judd, as we wind things down and start, and like I said, we've got one question so far.
Okay.
Anybody else would like to ask a question, please do. This would be a good opportunity. So what are some things that we can do now? Oh, and I do have one before you go there. You were saying you're working also with government intervention, not just security, but also trying to work
Yeah.
on talking to these different governments. What what have you seen? This seems like a loaded question because I know where this is going. What have you seen between the previous administration, the Biden Harris administration, and now we're in the Trump administration? Obviously, he's already intervening, but how
Yeah.
did that change the climate at all automatically? Did people start
Um,
taking things more serious?
People are taking things a little more seriously. I think the Nigerian government is still testing to see what Trump will do and with what's happening. Um, but essentially, you've seen a lot of recent developments in Africa foreign policy in the last 4 months, primarily because the Trump administration wanted to deal with America, issues first, domestic policy, and then they'll work on foreign policy. So finally, they're starting to do things about foreign policy and all that. And from day one, since Trump got elected, I've been going to D.C., meeting with congressmen,
Mm,
meeting with all sorts of people, letting them know what's going on in Nigeria. The Biden administration completely turned a blind eye. They wanted nothing to do with us. Nobody wanted to meet with us. In fact, the Biden administration helped enable uh, the corrupt Nigerian government. And under Biden, you saw killings increase. We saw security deteriorate because they were more concerned about pushing LGBTQ feminism agenda.
yes.
There was no operating directive in the U.S. embassy. So when I would say operating directive, that's what the government message sends down to the embassy and sends down to the people to pay attention to, like to
Mm,
start researching, taking documents, looking into. There was no
that's a,
operating directive to even look into the killing of Christians in Nigeria.
well, I think
Nothing. Like
the
nothing.
Secretary of State dismiss that just outright, just dismiss the whole narrative and said, "Oh,
Yes.
it's an environmental issue."
Yeah.
So
It's an
that's
environmental issue. It's not a
yeah,
big deal. It's an environmental issue. They put no resources. They didn't even put a guy into looking into what was going on. And they filled the bureaucracy like within the embassies, within the State Department, a bunch of leftist morons
mm,
that were
yeah,
concentrating on LGBTQ issues. Forget religious freedom. That was an afterthought. They didn't even think about that stuff. And now they've cleaned house. They're still cleaning house. We're still trying to find the allies and the right people we can work with. But it is, I mean, it was a cesspool, for the past few years now that is now being cleaned up. And I
yeah.
was being very honest. The Biden administration was absolutely worthless. So were all their bureaucrats, and they helped kill Christians in Nigeria.
Wow, that's. I mean, it's a bold claim, but not at all surprising. Everywhere I went, I mean, I was to speak in Kenya on Islamic apologetics. It took me until this summer finally to I've given one talk on Islamic apologetics, like worldwide, maybe two out of the
Mm-hmm.
countless conferences in the over 20 countries I've spoken in the last 18 months. And I can tell it infuriates me, Judd, that when I go across the world, like in 2024, I spoke in Nigeria, Rwanda, Kenya, Cambodia, Philippines, Malaysia, like all these places, they had one thing in common. Could you please talk to our students about LGBT? It's like, why is that? Because
Right.
U.S. foreign
Right.
aid, United Nations, all these foreign powers are just throwing money at transgender legislation and trans rights, human rights
Mhm.
violations, they were called,
Yeah.
which is, gay people should be able to get married. And anybody that's worked in Africa
Hey,
knows that
hey,
not even South Africa is anywhere close to that culturally.
no, no, no. It's
it,
it's it's not an issue. It's not an issue. It's not a thing. But they completely ignore the babies and the people being burned
it's
alive, the babies
exactly right.
being killed, completely ignoring all that. It's
Well,
it's ridiculous.
yeah, we kind of started with this conversation, but yeah, I was
Yep.
wanting to let you know, like, it's not just a Nigeria problem; it's everywhere in the world that you go. You hear the same. I remember hearing an apologist say that had a global ministry. He said it's amazing that people say, "How do you prepare for your Q&A being in so many different countries?" He said, and this was like 5, 6 years ago. He said, well, thanks to the internet, people basically ask the same 20 questions pretty much we
Right.
hear like on repeat.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it doesn't surprise me at all that same thing was happening whenever you were talking. It's not only is it the LGBT agenda and all this other stuff, but it's the total ignoring of real human rights violations that
Right.
it's a twofold infuriation for me. It's like kind of,
Ab-
so okay.
Absolutely nuts.
So we did have this one comment that I wanted you to unpack really quick. I thought this was an interesting. I'm not sure if this listener is from Nigeria or not. We do have quite a few, but he said, "Good evening, my brethren. Please, the only way to stop this massacre is separation. These
Nope.
killings have been going on since Bahari regime. Remember, separate." Is the only, I think he meant is the only solution. So what exactly, I didn't know what the Bahari, like what he meant by exactly the Bahari regime, and what does he mean
I'll
by separation?
Okay. So there's a Nigerian contingent known as the Biafra.
Mm,
They are from the south. They're of the Igbo tribe, and they want to separate themselves completely from Nigeria and have
mm,
their own government, have their own thing. My argument to them has always been this: is that you can't separate from Nigeria and think that you're going to be wonderful and okay, because the Biafra want to separate themselves from everybody else.
mm,
Okay. So that leaves out the Tiv, the Idoma, the Hausa, all the Egon, the Igala. I can name a whole bunch of tribes that are not Biafra, that if you said, okay, we're going to fully separate, all those other tribes are going to have to fight it out and fend for themselves and be under full Islamic control.
mm.
And if they separate, if they got their way, right? They got their way, they became their own country, they would be overpowered in a heartbeat. They need the help
Yeah.
of all the other Christian tribes that are Christians. And so that's the big thing that they're saying: separate Biafra, separate country. I'm not with that. I'm not with that, because I think there needs to be a united front, Nigeria, to defeat the terrorists that are there. Because if they take over the rest, you guys are next.
Yeah.
So I'm not part of this Biafra separation thing.
Okay. See, I had no idea that was going on. You said that was which tribe?
Igbo,
Igbo? Yeah.
IGBO.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think
And,
that's the
and,
tribe that
like, I have nothing
Santeria came
against
from.
Igbo. I have nothing against Igbo, but
Right.
this whole, like, they're trying to use the cause of the killing of Christians to justify a separation to have their own country.
Hmm.
But they're going to leave out all the other tribes that are being affected and killed.
Yeah, and it would seem to me that it would be kind of similar to a Sudan situation too. It's not
Right.
Yeah, probably not going to work. Does that go back to the Nigerian Civil War kind of sentiments that took
Yes.
place?
Yes.
Oh,
It
that's where
goes back to the Nigerian Civil War.
which was in the
But that's
1970s, I think.
right. But that's not my mission. I'm not calling for a separate Biafra separation and tribe. I'm saying let's stop the killing of Christians in Nigeria. And Igbo and the Biafra, why don't you join your brothers and sisters in Christ up north and help them? That's what I say.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. See, this is stuff that, like I said, like anytime I talk to somebody like you, Judd, it's like I learn something new about this country. I mean, I've been there, I know people there, but it's so complex. It's just not even. And you know what makes me it really makes me angry when the media tends to speak with such certainty about what's going on there, like they actually know what's going on. Then they ignore guys like you that have media experience, even, it's part of what you do. You're documentarian and you're like, I know what I'm doing here. Like, and a lot of people would think that you would come from a bias, but, well, one, everybody has some kind of bias, whatever. But the thing is, like, what people don't realize is that would only hurt your cause if you were just over there making this stuff up. Like that, we live in such a time that you can fact check anything anymore. And like, as I've watched your stuff and looked some of this stuff up, it's just mind bending to me
Mhm.
the
Well, I,
amount of what's going on.
I defend anything and everything we put out. Why? Because I have facts behind me. I
That's
have
right.
real legitimate facts and data behind me.
Yep.
I don't have a narrative. I have legitimate facts behind me and experience, eyewitness accounts. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw this out there to your listeners. If they want to see something interesting, this is being launched next week. Okay. I'm doing a press conference in DC to launch this tool. Nigeria Terror Tracker, nttmap.org.
Oh, cool.
nttmap.org. That has every terrorist attack in Nigeria in the last 5 years, who did it, geolocation of where they did it, and information about each attack.
I put that in
interactive map.
I put that in the comments, but after we close down the broadcast, I'm going to put that into the description of the video as well.
It's still a work in progress. We're still uploading data, but this is a very accurate, clear representation of what we're dealing with.
Wow. And that's awesome. And it's, people need to realize too, Muslim terrorism is not just relegated to Nigeria. It is all over Africa, especially as it borders the sub-Saharan border region. So even when I'm in Mombasa, Kenya, you have the you have Boko Haram, ISIS, the Fulanis in Nigeria. Over there, you have Al-Shabaab, which are the Somali terrorists, which are very
terrorists. Right.
Yeah, they're very. I mean, they've killed policemen while I've been staying there before. It's
wicked.
It's all crazy. It's and it needs to be talked about more. And it's very underreported.
And it can be stopped if good men stand up and fight it, deal with it, stand in the gap for the vulnerable and those that need our help.
That's true. Well, Judd, thank you so much. Any other closing thoughts before we hop off here today?
Nope. That's all I got, brother. Equippingthepersecuted.org for those that are listening, truthnigeria.com. Check us out.
Yeah, please do check them out. You guys and follow. Do you have a YouTube channel yet, Judd? I didn't see one.
Not so much YouTube. It's Instagram, Facebook, and X. We're trying to do more on those. YouTube, we'll be doing more stuff later.
Cool. So, all right. Well, wonderful. Well, Judd, thank you so much for your time. I know it's very precious, and we thank you for everything that you're doing for a group of people that otherwise we may not ever hear about if it wasn't for the efforts that you guys are putting out. And we are so thankful that you're there for these folks. And one of these days I will help you cast your crown at the feet of Jesus in heaven. It'll be so filled with all these jewels that I have to help you, man. I'm just kidding. And I do appreciate your humility with all of this too, man. You're just doing God's work, and I just really appreciate it. And it's glad to get to know you a little bit better today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And so, guys, we do appreciate our friend Judd and all he's doing. If you want to continue to follow the broadcast this I always want to say semester because I'm in college ministry, but 2026, the spring season, we have Stan Wallace coming up on Monday. We're going to be talking about this book right here. I have it down here next to me. Really looking forward to this. Have We Lost Our Minds? And it's a awesome book on the difference between the soul and the brain, and is there any difference, and where are we having thoughts, and how that has to do with Christianity and everything that has to do with discipleship, things like that. So you guys will really enjoy that. And that will be this Monday. So, of course, just follow the channel, like and subscribe, and you will stay in the loop as always. Guys, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for listening this long, and continue to speak truth and be willing to have the conversation. Thanks for tuning into the Truth Convo today, and we'll see you on Monday.